Many woods on the planet hide dark stories, monsters lurking in the dark, underground military bases where terrible experiments are carried out, cases of unexplained disappearances. Did you really think this was just fiction? Do you really think it's safe to go into the woods? The truth is more frightening than fiction when we discover real stories of people disappearing in the woods, supernatural abductions, and invisible monsters lurking. Unfortunately, that dark forest environment in which people are abducted by some evil or incomprehensible entity is not a matter of fiction. And today, we will see some terrifying cases where someone or something living in the woods seems to take people away. Case 1. The Killer Forest. In 2013, a newspaper in the United States published an article that seemed to shed light on something that, for some reason, no one had taken seriously. Basically, it talked about the disappearance of a young man in the Willamette National Forest in the state of Oregon. Jake Dutton, a young former member of the Coast Guard, entered the forest in June 2012. Although his physical abilities were exceptional, he never left again. Weeks later, someone discovered part of Jake's map in a creek far from where he was supposed to be. But apart from that, nothing else was ever found. Keep in mind that the organic body can decompose or be eaten by wild animals, but imperishable items should be kept, like the plastic boat that Jake was carrying. None of this was ever found either. The scariest thing is that the same forest has taken the lives of 240 people. But it doesn't end there. In 2012, there was a similar disappearance in the Willamette National Forest. Ronald Ohm, 52, had been hiking with a group near Lake Russell. At one point along the way, Ronald straggled to take some pictures of the landscape while the rest of the group set up camp. Ronald never arrived where the rest of the campers were. As it was already late, his group could not go looking for him until the next morning. That same morning, more than 50 people, including security forces and volunteers, began the search. Oregon law enforcement provided 2 rescue planes and several helicopters for an aerial view of the entire forest. In total, an area of nearly 500 square kilometers was covered. According to Mr. Thompson, a spokesperson for the Marion County Sheriff's Office, all kinds of resources, from horses, motorcycles, SUVs, and people on foot were used to locate Ronald. But as you might have guessed, it was all in vain because Ronald Ohm was never found. Nor was there any trace of his personal belongings, such as his tent and sleeping bag. The disturbing thing about all of this is that Ronald was seen as a veteran of the woods who never stopped coming into contact with nature. It is very strange that he could be lost like that, considering that he knew the woods so well. Case number 2, faded into thin air. In June 2013, the Reiger family from Oklahoma decided to take a summer vacation in Ecuador. One day, they went for a walk of no more than 30 minutes in a nearby forest on a marked trail. At one point, the 2 college-educated sons ran into the woods, but only one of them returned. When the parents questioned him about his brother, he said they had been separated for only a couple of seconds, and he lost sight of him. The older brother had apparently vanished into thin air at one point, even though they were no more than a few feet apart. When the father contacted the authorities, he mentioned that the path was very clear and that the forest was not even dense. Everything was very strange. More than 150 police and volunteers and 60 members of the Ecuadorian army spent hours and hours searching for the young man. But many claim that it was even ridiculous to spend so much time looking for someone who had disappeared in such a small and domesticated forest. Finally, nothing was found. No remains, no clothes, no personal items, no blood. Young Reiger was known as the Oklahoma boy who disappeared 3,000 miles from his home. Even today, his family hopes he will return home one day, as they can find no explanation for his disappearance. Case number 3. Something took her off the road. Jean Heschelschwart was 37 years old when she disappeared. In 1995, she and her partner were on vacation in Yosemite National Park. At one point on their journey, they decided to stop at a parking lot to stretch out a bit and take a break from the car. They separated for a few minutes to go for a walk in some nearby trees, but when Jean's partner returned to the car, she wasn't anywhere. At first, he didn't worry too much because he thought she'd be back any moment. But when the minutes began to pass, he began to feel more and more restless, which made him start looking for his partner. Luckily, a ranger was passing by at the time, so he explained the whole situation. In less than 45 minutes, a whole rescue operation had been set up that would last a whole week. There were teams of sniffer dogs, 2 helicopters, and hundreds of volunteers who worked hard to find Jean. They even searched a much larger area than she was supposed to be, just to be safe. One of the rangers presented a report that showed that there had been no wild animal attacks or deaths in this place for decades. So this was a very remote possibility, almost impossible. Jean's boyfriend was subjected to numerous interrogations and lie detector tests, but he passed all of them with flying colors, which ruled out the possibility of a murder. The man was completely innocent. Even the searchers began to think of the woman's disappearance as almost mystical. Since Jean was wearing boots similar to those worn by the rescue team, it was completely impossible to identify any of her footprints. They simply all looked exactly the same. 3 months later, 2 fishermen told the rangers that they thought they saw a body in a stream. When it was examined, it turned out to be Jean's body, and it was 5 kilometers away from where she was last seen. One of the fishermen who found the body later said that to reach that stream, one had to be a real climber. There was no way she would have climbed up there just out of curiosity. Many argued that she might have become disoriented and panicked, but she had barely gone 5 kilometers, and from where her body was, the road could be seen. It was almost impossible that she had not noticed the entire mobilization. The case is still unsolved. What happened to Jean that made her get lost in a place like this, so close to her car with so many people looking for her? What do you think about this? Can something really exist in the forest that takes people away? After all, very strange things have been seen in the woods. Even the predator itself. Yes, you heard right, the predator from the movies. If you want to know more, here is the video.